My last video did really well for my standards, so it's good that I have more to say. This is an extension of the same topic essentially. These are things that I want from the next Smash game that I didn't go over last time. So the big topic of this video is going to be going into specifics on what first-party characters I want to see, but first I want to briefly go over something that I didn't last time: visual style. Now this is probably a less hot take than my last hot take. I think Smash Ultimate is one of the worst looking games in its series, mostly down to the textures. Everything looks way too washed out in my opinion, and that's the biggest change I'd like to see visually. But if possible, I'd also like to see some update to the general Smash art style. Maybe lean in a little more on that comic booky angle from Smash 64. I love the realism and brawl in Smash 4, but I think it's time for a change. It doesn't have to be huge, and of course the characters should still look essentially the same as they do in their original games. This is probably the old head in me talking, but there's some characters who I would definitely like to have a more classic look. Like, if Smash is a celebration of gaming history, Link should be green. That's how he is in almost every game with the exception of the Breath of the Wild duology, and that's how I think he should be represented in Smash. I'd kinda like to see a more early series look for Fox. Never been a fan of the Scouter or the shorter muzzle, really. I'm kinda hoping they don't go for the new 2026 Star Fox design. I just think it would be kinda jarring. Knowing Smash though, oftentimes it is what's newest that they go with. In some cases I'd be down for that though. The more updated looks for the Mario cast are all very solid, and it would be nice for them to be updated in Smash. And if we finally get a new look for Sonic, I'll definitely campaign for that too. Oh, and if Mega Man comes back, they should probably come up with a different approach for him, because I don't know if I love what they've been doing. That's about all I have to say on the visual front at the moment, though, so now we're gonna get into the real trenches. Based on the example I did in my last video, there are somewhere between 12 and 9 open slots, and I'm not going to go over that number of characters because some of those, most likely exactly 2, are going to go to new third parties, which is a big enough topic to be its own video. So I'm just gonna go over the biggest first party characters that I'm hoping for. To start with, let's go over the returning series. There's at least one new Mario related character in each Smash game, and I think the front runner this time around is still absolutely Waluigi. I can see the arguments for other Mario related characters, but I don't think they have anything on Waluigi really. I genuinely think he might be, on some level, the most wanted character for Smash ever. Back in 2018, people were making whole songs and like narrative animations and stuff just surrounding the concept of Waluigi not being playable in a video game. Whether it's ironic or not, that's support. People ask for this guy so much, and they still do. The very first comment in my last video was about Waluigi. Yeah, that's right, to Black Mamba P5Z. You're in the video. I'm using you as an example. Waluigi, having debuted in Mario Tennis, could also be considered a specific representative for the Mario Sports series, which has been around since the Famicom days and is still alive and thriving. We also get a Pokemon from the most recent generation of the time in every Smash game. We don't know much about Generation 10 yet, so I'll just say for the sake of completing the trend, I hope it's the final evolution of the Grass Starter. Despite not being in the new one anymore, Meowscarada would also make sense as a new Pokemon character in addition to the Gen 10 one because of the anime, but that's if we can justify it. Zelda is a really underrepresented series in Smash, with all of its characters being variations on the Triforce trio. I think it majorly needs a new character, and again, I do see the argument for someone more modern like Sidon, but when there's a long-beloved Zelda character who's been wanted for Smash for a long time, and Pokemon and Fire Emblem are still getting their new generation reps, I think we can justify a fan service pick and go for Skull Kid. Look, Skull Kid is iconic, villains are always good to add, and the energy that little freak would bring to Smash would be fantastic. He might be the only guy who can match Sephiroth's level of menace. I want this guy in the game. We already mentioned Fire Emblem, so let's get it out of the way. I'm not particularly big on Fire Emblem, but I already really want Kai from the upcoming Fire Emblem Fortunes Weave in Smash, for 3 reasons. His design is cool, he has a unique weapon, and most importantly, he fights on a mount. A mounted character in Smash, especially one from Fire Emblem, is something I wanted for years, and the opportunity is practically presenting itself on a silver platter. I'm going to be disappointed if it doesn't happen. Waddle Dee is one of the most iconic Nintendo characters who hasn't been added to Smash yet. Kirby is definitely a video game icon, but he's also kind of a merchandising icon, and that's where he is so often paired up with a regular old Waddle Dee. In the games, Waddle Dee is the most common enemy, as well as the most common inhabitant of the Kirby world. And in specific, Bandana Waddle Dee is a pretty core character to the series. This isn't an insult to Bandana, but I think the regular Waddle Dee is more suited to being the default character, while Bandana would be an alt. Of course, the moveset would take a lot from both in either case, especially since Bandana uses a spear, a type of weapon which is extremely rare in Smash. Splatoon is a pretty huge series for Nintendo now and probably justifies itself as second character. I think for many, one of Splatoon's idols would be the natural choice, but it just seems kind of weird to me because the idols are all part of a group. I can't really think of an approach where having all of them as one character would work, and only having one of them separated from the rest of the duo or trio just seems really weird. Look, I get it, he's not as popular, but the main recurring villain of the series is just sitting right there. In my personal opinion, DJ Octavio is the best choice for a Splatoon representative. You might want to take that with a grain of salt though, because I don't know too much about Splatoon, compared to other Nintendo games at least. And also, Raiders could potentially change things. With that, it's on to characters from new series. I only have two, and I think both of them are very deserving of the inclusion. Both are characters who were either considered for Smash in the past, or are heavily rumored to have been considered for Smash in the past. Both of them are from long-running, currently active Nintendo series, and both of them would be very unique additions to the game. First off, we have Chorus Kids, who have near universally been considered the frontrunner for a representative of the Rhythm Heaven series in Smash. I still think Chorus Kids would be a really good choice, especially for a trio of characters. They're the same size and small, so I could see them all walking separately, but I'd also really like to see them stacked on top of each other, as many fans have conceptualized over the years. Finally, we have Ayumi Tachibana of Famicom Detective Club, a character who was considered for Melee but never made it to a playable status. Famicom Detective Club is back now. Not only that, it's releasing outside Japan now. This is Ayumi's time. Now, I do see the argument for Emio as the representative of the series, but I'm not really as into that. Ayumi has been around as a character for way longer than Emio, and honestly, it seems like it would be a lot more fun to have an investigator as the representative of a mystery game than the killer, because I think the creative opportunity would be much greater. Both Chorus Kids and Ayumi would also be the first characters in Smash representing their respective genres, rhythm and visual novel games, both of which are pretty notable genres. These two might actually be my most wanted first-party characters for the next Smash, because both of them would be so unique and interesting. But that about wraps it up. This is the part where I start randomly laughing. I want to thank you all for how well my last video did. It really does mean a lot to me to see a video I actually put effort into performing so well, and trust me when I say, I'm not done yet, not remotely, so please consider subscribing if you'd like to see more Smash-related videos.
詰め込みすぎの究極乱闘大乱闘スマッシュブラザーズ for Wii U